Let me tell you something I learned early in life. The most powerful conversation you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. See, it's not the economy that determines your future. It's not the government. It's not your boss, your neighbor, or even your circumstances. It's your inner dialogue. It's the words you whisper to yourself when no one's around. And winners, they know how to control that conversation. The mind is a strange thing. It listens, it believes, it obeys. If you keep telling yourself you're not enough, eventually your mind will start designing your life around that idea. You'll hesitate, you'll retreat, you'll shrink back from opportunity. But if you say, I can, if you say, I will, if you say, why not me, suddenly the possibilities begin to change. Your mind begins to stretch. The light starts to flicker back on. Now, don't get me wrong. This isn't about standing in front of the mirror chanting affirmations you don't believe. This is about training your mind with intention. You don't just hope your inner dialogue improves. You discipline it. You educate it. You coach it. And like any good coach, you have to be consistent. You have to know when to be tough. And you have to know when to be encouraging. Most people let their mind run wild. They feed it junk thoughts, like junk food. I'll never be good at that. I always mess things up. What if I fail? And let me tell you, if you feed your mind garbage long enough, don't be surprised when it produces garbage outcomes. Winners take time every day, even just 5 minutes, to tune their thoughts. Like tuning an instrument, they get their thinking aligned before they step out the door. I used to be one of those guys who let the world do all the talking for me. If things were bad, I'd say, that's just my luck. If I had a setback, I'd say, see, it never works out for me. And one day, a mentor looked me in the eye and said, Jim, if you talk to your friends the way you talk to yourself, you wouldn't have any. That hit me hard. It made me realize I was sabotaging myself from the inside. So I started changing the way I spoke internally. I didn't lie to myself, but I looked for truth that helped me grow. I'd say things like, I'm not there yet, but I'm getting better. I may not know everything, but I'm committed to learning. This challenge isn't here to break me. It's here to build me. I trained my mind to work with me, not against me. It's like this. Your mind is a garden. If you don't plant flowers, weeds will grow by default. Neglect breeds negativity. But winners, they pull the weed. They plant the right thoughts. They water their confidence every day. And over time, the landscape of their thinking transforms. They don't wake up winners, they become winners by training their inner voice to be a source of courage, not criticism. You don't need a fancy degree to master this. You don't need the right connections. What you need is awareness. Start noticing the words you say to yourself, especially in tough moments. When you make a mistake, do you call yourself a failure? Or do you say lesson learned? When things don't go your way, do you crumble or do you say time to adjust? That's the game. That's where winners are made. You see, you can't always control what happens around you, but you can always control what happens within you. That's the foundation of strength. That's the birthplace of confidence. That's where winning begins. So take inventory of your thoughts. Audit your self-talk. Speak to yourself like someone you love, someone you believe in, someone you're proud of. Because if you don't believe in you, how can anyone else? Train your mind to be your ally. When the inner voice gets strong, the outer world starts to respond. Opportunities start showing up. People start treating you differently. Not because they changed, you did. That's how it works. And remember, the journey to success doesn't start with action. It starts with a whisper inside that says, I can. Winners hear that voice every day, and they choose to listen. Absolutely. Here's an expanded version of the second keynote. Vocabulary reflects vision. Written in the voice and rhythm of Jim Rohn. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned in life, and it came a little later than I would have liked, is that your words are a window into your future. You can tell a lot about someone's destiny by listening to their vocabulary. Just give them 5 minutes to talk, and you'll learn if they're growing or shrinking, rising or retreating, thinking like a champion or living like a victim. See, your vocabulary doesn't just describe your life, it shapes it. What you talk about, you bring about. Now, I don't mean you have to sound like a walking dictionary or be the smartest person in the room. I'm not talking about being fancy. I'm talking about being intentional. Winners use words that build bridges to where they're going. They speak in ways that reflect vision, not limitation. They talk about what's possible, not just what's practical. While others complain about what they see, winners speak about what they believe. The average person says things like, "That'll never work," or "People like me don't get those kinds of chances." But winners, they say, "Let's figure it out." Or if not me, who? Big difference. One kind of language shuts doors. The other kind opens. It's amazing how the wrong words can shrink a great idea. I've seen people with $1 million opportunity kill it with a 10-cent vocabulary. You ask them how business is going and they say, "Oh, same old, same old." You ask them what they're working on and they say, "Just trying to get by." That kind of talk becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Why? Because the words you consistently speak start to program the way you think, and the way you think determines how you act. I remember a time early in my career, I caught myself saying things like, "I'll try," or "maybe someday." My mentor pulled me aside and said, "Jim, stop using vocabulary that gives you an exit door. Winners don't try, they decide." That hit me hard. I realized my words were soft, uncertain, because my thinking was soft and uncertain. So I made a decision. I started speaking with more clarity, more intention, not arrogance, confidence, not fluff, focus. And it wasn't just about speaking in public. It was about the everyday language I used in private. How did I talk about my future, my family, my finances, my health? If you keep saying "I can't lose weight," guess what? You won't. If you keep saying "I never have enough money," you'll find a way to always be short. But if you change your words, just start saying, "I'm figuring it out," or "I'm learning to handle money wisely," you'll begin to see change. Your words create momentum. Winners understand that vocabulary is a leadership tool. They use it to lead themselves. They use it to lead others. They lift people with their words. They encourage. They inspire. They speak with vision. They say things like, "We're going to get there. We're just getting started. There's more in you than you think." That kind of vocabulary creates it stirs people. It creates forward motion. Now let me be clear. This doesn't mean you ignore reality or pretend everything's perfect. Winners face the truth, but they speak hope into it. They acknowledge the facts, but they don't let the facts become the whole story. They say, "Yes, it's tough, but I'm tougher." They say, "Yes, there's a challenge, but I see a way through." That's how vision sounds in everyday conversation. Look around you. The most successful people you know, they have a way of talking. Listen closely. Their vocabulary is rich, not with complicated words, but with words of direction, belief, and possibility. It's not accidental. They've trained themselves to speak from where they're going, not just from where they are. So I'll leave you with a challenge. Do a vocabulary audit. Pay attention to the words that come out of your mouth this week. Are they moving you closer to your goals? Or are they keeping you stuck? Are they words of expansion or words of limitation? Remember, your mouth is the microphone to your mind. If you want to change your life, start by changing the way you speak about it. Because when your vocabulary changes, your vision gets clearer. And when your vision gets clearer, the path to winning becomes a whole lot easier to walk. One of the great secrets to winning in life is this: think beyond today. Winners don't just think about what's easy, quick, or convenient. They think about what's worth it. They think long term, while others are chasing the next moment of comfort, the next shiny distraction, the next quick fix. Winners are building something that lasts, something that matters. Now let's be honest. It's tempting to go for the shortcut. It feels good to get quick results. We live in a world that wants things fast. Fast money, fast food, fast answers. But let me ask you something. When was the last time a shortcut ever produced something truly valuable? Fast is often fragile. Winners know this. That's why they delay pleasure today for the reward of tomorrow. That's why they say no to distraction and yes to discipline. They've trained themselves to choose growth over gratification. I remember when I was just getting started, I wanted everything to happen right away. I'd go to one seminar and expect my life to change overnight. I'd read one book and think, all right, this should do it. But it doesn't work that way. Success doesn't come to those who dabble. It comes to those who commit for the long haul. It's not about intensity for a week. It's about consistency for a decade. And the truth is, thinking long-term is rare. Most people are only focused on Friday night. Winners are thinking 5 years out. You ask the average person what they want, and they'll say, I just want to get through this week. You ask a winner what they want, and they'll tell you about the life they're building, the goals they're chasing, the person they're becoming. That's the difference. See, winners understand a simple principle. You can't have the harvest without the planting. Most people want the rewards without the work. They want the outcome without the process. But winners respect the seasons. They know that every big win is the result of hundreds of small, often unseen daily decisions. Winners invest their time and energy like farmers, carefully, patiently, persistently. And this kind of thinking shows up in every area of life. In business, the average person chases trends. Whatever's hot right now. Winners build value. They focus on relationships, reputation, and results that stand the test of time. In health, most people want a magic pill. Winners show up at the gym even when nobody's watching. In finances, the masses spend impulsively, chasing that next thrill. But winners save, invest, plan. They ask, what does this decision do for my future? Not just, how does this make me feel right now? Thinking long-term doesn't mean you don't enjoy the moment. It just means you don't sacrifice what you want most for what you want now. It's about perspective. Winners see the future not as a mystery, but as something they're shaping with every word, every choice, every habit. They know that every step taken today, no matter how small, can compound into extraordinary results if done consistently over time. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine two people, both 25 years old. One spends $5 a day on coffee. The other invests that same $5 a day into a simple index fund. You come back in 30 days, no difference. A year, still nothing dramatic. But you come back in 30 years, and the one who invested has a small fortune. That's the power of long-term thinking. It's invisible at first, but it becomes undeniable over time. Winners live by this truth. Discipline weighs ounces. Regret weighs tons. They'd rather carry the light burden of showing up every day than the heavy burden of looking back and wondering what could have been. They understand that patience isn't passive. It's powerful. It's the ability to keep showing up, knowing that the results are on their way, as long as you keep planting, watering, and believing. So if you want to think like a winner, stop asking what's easy. Start asking what's right. Stop asking what works right now. Start asking what will still matter 10 years from now. When you align your actions with your future, not just your feelings, you'll begin to make decisions that build legacy, not just lifestyle. That's the path of the winner. It's not glamorous every day. It's not exciting all the time, but it's steady. It's deliberate. It's visionary. And over time, it separates those who merely existed from those who truly lived. One of the biggest differences between people who live average lives and people who live extraordinary lives is the kind of questions they ask. That might sound simple, maybe even too simple, but let me tell you, it's profound. Winners ask better questions, not just more questions, better ones. They ask questions that open doors, questions that move the needle, questions that create change. You see, your brain is like a search engine. Ask it a question, and it will go looking for the answer. If you ask a negative question, you'll get a negative answer. If you ask a limited question, you'll get a limited answer. But if you ask a powerful, purposeful question, you get a powerful, purposeful answer. The quality of your questions determines the quality of your thinking, and the quality of your thinking determines the quality of your life. Most people, when they hit a wall, ask questions like, why is this happening to me? Or why can't I ever catch a break? Or what's wrong with me? Now those questions sound innocent, but they're dangerous. They don't produce solutions, they produce excuses. They don't lead to action, they lead to victim thinking. And you can't win with a victim mindset. Winners don't ask those kinds of questions. When things go wrong, they ask, what can I learn from this? How can I respond better next time? What part of this do I need to take ownership of? That's growth thinking. That's solution-based thinking. That's the kind of thinking that produces forward momentum, even in the middle of a mess. I'll never forget when one of my mentors said to me, Jim, don't ask, can I do it? Ask, how can I do it? That one shift changed everything. See, the first question, let's doubt. The second one activates your creativity. One closes the mind. The other opens it. Winners know this. They don't waste time asking disempowering questions. They ask questions that direct their energy toward building, not breaking down. And this isn't just about overcoming problems. It's about designing your future. Most people never ask themselves what they really want. They go through life reacting to everything, putting out fires, solving other people's problems. But winners take time to sit down and ask the hard questions. What kind of life do I want to build? What kind of person do I want to become? What do I need to change today to be that person 5 years from now? Those are tough questions. They make you uncomfortable. But growth always starts with discomfort. Winners are willing to face that. They're willing to dig deep, to be honest with themselves, to wrestle with the answers, because they know clarity doesn't come from coasting. It comes from questioning. And here's the thing, winners don't just ask these questions once. They build the habit of asking good questions daily. They reflect, they pause, they evaluate. When they finish a project, they don't just move on. They ask, what worked? What would I do differently next time? That's how they grow faster than everyone else. That's how they get better results. Not by being smarter, but by being more intentional. Think about it. If you ask yourself every morning, what's the most important thing I can do today to move toward my goals? You're going to live a very different life than if you ask, how can I just get through the day? One question leads to progress. The other leads to survival. Big difference. And winners also know how to ask others great questions. They ask mentors, leaders, colleagues. They say, what would you do in my situation? What's the best advice you've ever received? Where do you see a blind spot in me? See, they're not afraid of learning. They don't need to pretend they know everything. In fact, they assume they don't. And that's why they grow. So if you want to start thinking like a winner, start by changing your questions. Replace why me with what can I learn? Replace what if I fail with what if I grow? Replace can I do this with what's my first step? Ask better questions, and you'll get better answers. Better answers lead to better decisions, and better decisions, that's the path to a better life. Remember, you're always one question away from a breakthrough. Winners know that, and that's why they never stop asking. One of the habits that separates winners from the rest of the crowd is the way they speak. See, most people talk just to fill the silence. They speak without thinking. They throw words around like they don't matter. But winners, they speak with purpose. They don't just talk to be heard. They talk to make a difference. Their words are chosen, intentional, and often unforgettable. I remember my mentor once told me, Jim, words are like seeds. You're planting something every time you open your mouth. Make sure it's worth growing. That stuck with me. I realized that careless words produce careless results. But purposeful words, now those are powerful. They can build a future. They can build a team. They can even build a life. Winners don't just say what's convenient. They say what counts. They've learned to use their voice as a tool, not a toy. They understand that their words can influence their mood, their direction, their relationships, their income, everything. And so they guard their tongue. They pause before they speak. They ask themselves, is what I'm about to say constructive? Is it aligned with who I want to be? Does it help, or does it just add noise? You can tell a lot about someone's mindset by listening to the way they talk. Losers gossip. Winners speak vision. Losers complain. Winners communicate solutions. Losers talk about other people. Winners talk about ideas, principles, goals. One speaks from fear, the other speaks from purpose. Now, I'm not saying winners are always quiet. No, when they speak, you feel it. But it's not because they're the loudest in the room. It's because they've thought it through. They're not trying to impress you. They're trying to impart something. Something that sticks. Something that matters. They're not interested in small talk. They're interested in real talk. Talk that moves you forward. And here's the thing. They use their words to influence themselves. Not just others. They speak with purpose in private just as much as in public. You'll hear them say things like, "This isn't over yet. Let's figure it out. We're just getting started." They speak energy into their day. They speak belief into their goals. They don't wait for the perfect mood. They use their words to create it. That's a habit of a winner. You'll rarely hear them say things like, "I'm so tired. I can't do this. I hate Monday." Not because they're pretending life is perfect, but because they know those words carry weight. They know that speaking defeat invites more of it. They understand that every phrase has a consequence, and they're not willing to pay the price for sloppy language. So they speak in alignment with their purpose, with their vision, with their values. They're also master encouragers. See, when you speak with purpose, you don't just lift yourself, you lift others. You recognize that everyone you meet is fighting a battle you don't see, and your words might be the fuel they need to keep going. Winners say things like, "You've got this. I believe in you. You're better than you think." Not just when it's easy, but when it's needed. I've seen leaders transform entire teams. Not with money, not with threats, but with words. Words that challenged, words that inspired, words that awakened something in people that had been asleep for years. That's the power of speaking with purpose. It's not about charisma. It's about and when people know your words come from purpose, they start listening, really listening. And maybe the most important place winners speak with purpose is in moments of pressure, when the room is tense, when the stakes are high, when everyone else is panicking or blaming or shutting down. That's when the winner steps in, not with noise but with clarity. They say what needs to be said, not what feels easy to say. They bring calm, they bring focus, they bring leadership. So here's the challenge. Don't waste your words. Don't speak on autopilot. Before you open your mouth, ask yourself, what's the purpose of this sentence? Am I building or breaking? Am I helping or hurting? Am I moving closer to who I want to be, or drifting further away? Because the truth is, every word you say is a brick, and over time, you're building something with those bricks. Let it be something strong. Let it be something lasting. Let it be something you're proud of. That's what winners do. They don't speak just to be heard. They speak because they have something worth saying. One of the clearest signs you're becoming a winner is when you stop pointing fingers and start pointing thumbs. Winners don't waste their lives blaming circumstances, blaming people, blaming the past. No, winners take responsibility. They choose it. They wear it like a badge of honor because they understand this simple truth. You can't lead a life you refuse to own. Now it's easy to make excuses. The world will even applaud you for it. It's not your fault, they'll say. You had it harder than most. And maybe you did. Maybe you've been through things others have. But here's what winners understand. While you may not be responsible for everything that happens to you, you are responsible for how you respond to it. That's where your power lives, in your response. Life happens to all of us. Setbacks, disappointments, betrayals, failures. They're part of the deal. You don't get to escape them. But what separates winners is what they do when life shows up hard. Most people look for someone to blame. Winners look for a lesson to learn. Most people ask, who did this to me? Winners ask, what can I do about it? I remember in my early years, I had every excuse in the book. I blamed my background. I blamed my lack of education. I blamed the economy. And you know what all that blaming got me? Nothing. Broke, frustrated and stuck. One day my mentor sat me down and said, Jim, if you keep handing your responsibility to other people, don't be surprised when your results stay in their hands too. That hit me hard. I realized I had been waiting for someone else to fix what only I could change. So I made a decision. From that day forward, if something needed fixing, I'd fix it. If I made a mistake, I'd own it. If I failed, I'd learn. That's when things began to turn around. Not because life got easier, but because I got stronger. I stopped waiting for better conditions and started becoming a better person. Winners understand that responsibility is not a burden. It's a privilege. It's how you take control of your life. When you say it's on me, you're not just accepting fault. You're accepting power. You're saying I'm not a victim of the world. I'm a creator, and that mindset right there will change the game. And it shows up in the small things, not just the big ones. If a winner's late, they don't say traffic was crazy. They say I should have left earlier. If they miss a deadline, they don't say nobody reminded me. They say I should have been more organized. That kind of ownership builds trust. People follow those who take responsibility, not those who dodge it. You'll also find that winners don't make excuses for other people either. They don't tolerate blame culture on their team. They build a standard. They set the tone. They don't shame people for mistakes, but they do expect ownership, because nothing improves until someone says this is mine to fix. Excuses are comforting in the short term, but deadly in the long term. They let you off the hook today, but they cost you tomorrow. Every time you make an excuse, you reinforce a mindset of limitation. You teach your brain that external forces control your outcomes. But when you choose responsibility, you train your mind to find solutions, to grow, to win. Now, responsibility doesn't mean you're perfect. Winners still fall short. They still make mistakes, but they own it. They say that one's on me. Let me make it right. And because they own it, they learn. And because they learn, they don't repeat the same mistake 5 times in a row. Let me give you a little phrase to live by. If it's going to be, it's up to me. Say it to yourself every morning, not as a burden, but as a declaration. It means you're not waiting for permission. You're not waiting for perfect timing. You're not waiting for someone to rescue. You're stepping up. You're stepping forward. You're stepping into responsibility, because in the end, that's what leadership is. Not a title, not authority, not charisma. Leadership is responsibility, and the first person you lead is you. So if you want to win, start here. Stop explaining away your failures and start learning from them. Stop blaming the world and start shaping it. The minute you choose responsibility over excuses is the minute your life begins to change. That's what winners do every time. Most people live their lives chasing goals. They write them down. They post them on their wall. They say, I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to earn 6 figures. I want to start a business. I want to be more confident. And listen, there's nothing wrong with goals. Goals are good. Goals give you direction. But goals alone don't guarantee transformation. The secret of winners is that they don't just focus on what they want to achieve. They focus on who they need to become. Let me tell you something I learned the hard way. If you don't upgrade your identity, your goals will always stay just out of reach. That's because your habits, your words, your decisions, they don't come from your goals. They come from your identity. The way you see yourself determines what you will allow yourself to do. And if your self-image doesn't match your vision, you'll sabotage your progress every time. Let me give you an example. Say you set a goal to become financially independent. Great goal. So you start budgeting, saving, investing. But if deep down, you still see yourself as someone who's bad with money, you'll find a way to lose it, avoid it, or waste it. You'll revert back to who you believe you are, because your life will always come into alignment with your strongest identity, not your loudest wish. Winners understand this, so they don't just ask, what do I want? They ask, who do I need to become to achieve it? They don't say I want to run a marathon. They say I'm becoming a runner. They don't say I want to be successful. They say I'm the kind of person who shows up, who follows through, who doesn't quit. That subtle shift from goal-based thinking to identity-based thinking is where the real power lives. You can hit a goal and still be the same person, but when you change your identity, your entire life starts to shift. You don't have to force good habits. They become natural. You don't have to fake discipline. It becomes part of who you are. That's what happens when you stop focusing on the outcome and start aligning with the identity behind the outcome. So the real question is, who are you becoming? Every day, whether you know it or not, you're casting votes for the kind of person you believe you are. When you wake up early and train, you're casting a vote for the identity of a disciplined person. When you keep your word, even when it's hard, you're casting a vote for integrity. When you finish the book, when you make the sales call, when you choose growth over comfort, you're shaping your character, not just chasing a result. And don't think this has to happen all at once. Identity is built in small, consistent decisions. You don't have to say, I'm a world-class leader on day one, but you can say, I'm someone who shows up to lead. You don't have to say, I'm in the best shape of my life, but you can say, I'm the kind of person who takes care of my body. That's how you get momentum. Identity isn't claimed in a single moment. It's constructed over time. Now there's one more piece. Winners guard their identity. They don't let failure define them. They don't let opinions shape them. They don't let one bad day rewrite their story. They say, that mistake doesn't change who I'm becoming. And because their identity is rooted in purpose, not performance, they stay steady, even when the winds of life blow hard. I used to think the key to success was setting bigger goals, but then I realized, goals don't change you. Identity does. Who you believe you are sets the ceiling for what you will try, how long you will persist, and how high you will climb. If you want to grow your income, grow your identity. If you want to lead others, lead yourself. If you want to change your life, start by changing how you see you. So don't just write down what you want to do. Ask yourself who you must become to make it happen. And every day, take one step toward that person. Walk like them, talk like them, think like them. Eventually, you will become them. That's how winners think. That's how winners talk. And that's how winners live.